Okay, so let's say we want to expand this game, right? So that we want to make it multiplayer in the future or whatever. And as of right now, we have this really nice character movement system. You can see as I move my arrows keys around, my character walks, and that needs a little bit of polish. Let's go ahead and think about making some accessories for our character that we can use to customize it or give our players an ability to character to customize, okay? So I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to open up, and here we are back in Maya. And what I want to do is maybe just give him a hat. So what I have is under show joints, I turned off the joints. So they're not in my way. So turn off joints, show joints. And I'm going to start off by holding spacebar now. Or I'm sorry, shift and right clicking. And now you can see I can actually make all these different primitives. And it's sort of an expert tip, right? Instead of having to go to create polygons and a cube. So with a cube selected, something I like to do is notice there's a triangulation going on here. I actually like to make all of my primitives out of cubes. So I'm going to hold shift and right click and smooth this out. You can see it there. And I'm going to right click out to the side, make sure face is selected. And I'm just going to delete this. Okay. And let's say we're going to make like a derby hat or something. So I'm going to right click, go to edge mode, double click this bottom edge, right? And then hit R and hold shift and I can export this out. Or I'm sorry, extrude out that edge. And for my derby hat, I'm just going to grab these two side edges. I'm going to hit Q to hide my locator just so I can have selection mode. Then hit W and then pull those two edges up. So something like this. Or I guess it looks kind of like a cowboy hat. I'm just going to move this down and plop it on the top of my can here just so I can see how it looks. Let's bring it down just a little bit more. Now what we want to do is unwrap this hat so that when I go into my UV editor here and I go to paint it, you'll see that it fits in the corner. Because right now, notice that it's not unwrapped. So we're just going to follow the same process that we did for our can. So I'm going to select this, right click, go to face mode, double click it, hold shift and right click and go down to mapping and then planar map on Z. And because this bottom part of the face is already deleted, what we can do to unwrap it is just simply right click, go to UV mode, and just hit unfold. And that'll flatten it out. Now if we want to check if it's clean, we can turn this on here. And you can see as I move this around, I'm going to double right click, go to UV mode, double click it, and hit W. As I move this around, you can see that there isn't a lot of distortion. There's lots of straight lines here, things like that. I'm going to turn this off, hit E to rotate it. I'm just kind of straightening this out. Hit R to scale this down. I'm going to go back to object mode, select both of these guys. And I'm just going to fit my hat, double clicking UVs there, W. I'm just going to fit it right here in the middle here. And this is kind of, well, let's put it off in the corner. This is sort of my first accessory, right? All right. And so I'm going to right click on that hat and off on the side here, or actually with just the hat selected, right click off on the side here, go to assign existing material, pop can texture. You could see it's completely black because our texture here, this corner is black. So let's go ahead and create a UV layout. So I'm going to go to image, UV snapshot. Just like we did before, I'm going to create something called PopCan UVs. So in my browser here, I'm going to type PopCan UVs down here, save that, and then I do want to replace mine because I actually had created one a little bit earlier, and then just hit apply, and then overwrite it, and then that overrid it. Now, let's go back to Photoshop. Now inside of Photoshop, I'm just going to do File, Open, and I'm going to reopen those UVs. So, let's see, that is on our desktop, I believe. PopCan UVs and hit open. And you can see that they're just my lines. So I'm going to hit Control A so I can select all of it. Copy that, go back in here, and just hit Control V. Now on its own layer, you can see it pasted it. What I want to do is see through this black area. So inside of Photoshop, I can actually go down to screen and that'll remove all of the black but leave the white lines. You can see up in the corner here, now I can actually paint my hat. So let's say this particular hat is yellow, right, the whole hat, just so I can sort of differentiate a little bit. Notice that if I'm painting on my UVs, I'm overriding it. So what I want to do is underneath that, I want to create a new layer, and maybe I'll double click it and just name it hat. Do some good name conventions. And now you can see um, those lines are transparent. I'm just sort of painting underneath it. Now to give it a little bit of variation, I'm going to go to blue here, maybe a darker blue, and just on the line, and I know that this is the brim of the hat, and then this is the top of the hat. So just what I'm going to do here is just click, hold shift, and just draw out a line that goes all the way across like this. And then unhide this, hide that because I don't want those lines on my model. I'm going to hit Control S to save that. I'm going to go to JPEG. And what I want to navigate to is I actually want to navigate to the textures folder, which is inside of this project here. So you can see when I brought it in, it created a folder called Cano FBM with my color map. And this is what I want to save over. So I'm going to go in here, right click, show and explore. And then I'm going to grab actually let's go inside of this. Now I'm going to click on this. I want to grab this by hitting Control C. And all I did to select that was click in the white area here. Control C, go back to Photoshop. Click in the white area here, hit Control V, hit enter, and you can see here's my PopCan color. And I'm going to save over that, hit yes, hit OK. And then when you go back into Unity, you can see that it updated that texture. Now, what I'd like to do is not really affect this model. I want to create a folder of all accessories, right? And so inside my models folder here, I'm going to right click, create a new folder. And I'm going to call, I guess we could just call it armor, maybe. And then inside that folder, I'm going to right click, create another folder, and I'm going to call this hat. Or we want to do yellow underscore hat. And let's make sure yellow is spelled right. There we go, yellow hat. And now back in Maya, I'm going to, let's make sure that we also navigate to that same folder. So I'm going to click off to the side here, go to material attributes here. And then I want to navigate in here to that same folder. So I'm going to backspace out, hit Control V, hit enter, and just make sure now I'm selecting that, hit open, and now you can see there's that hat texture. Now we want to export this hat as its own object, right? So let's go ahead and clean it. So you can see that this is all a little bit, we have to clean out our history. So with just this selected, I'm going to go to edit, delete by type, history, just on that one. Otherwise, it'll break our animation of our model. If we do edit, delete all by type history, it'll actually delete everything. So with this, I'm going to go to my front view, and I'm just going to grab this hat and move it to the bottom of the floor here. And let's go ahead and let's talk about layers for a second. So in our channel box editor, right, that's this guy right here, I can select both of these, right? Come on, there we go. And then my model here. And I can make a new layer and right click and add selected objects. And then when I click visible, I can hide them. So if I double click this, I can name this can. So I remember that's the layer. Hide that, and now I can just look at this. This is my hat. And I'm going to move it all the way down to the floor. And actually, you know what? We might be able to, let's bring that back up to the top of the character's head. That might actually make a little bit better sense. So let's bring this up here so that when we bring it in our scene, it's just popped up on top of the character. Yeah, something like this. But what we want to do is say that this is the natural state, the frozen transform. So right now you can see if I move this to 0, it snaps down. If I do 3, it moves it up. What I want to say is that the natural position of this model is right here. So I do that by going to Modify, Freeze Transformations, and now this will always be the natural position. So if I move this off to the side here and I want to get it back, I can just hit 0 there. It'll move it back into place. So I'm going to do File, Export Selection, because I only want to export that hat. And I'm going to navigate up to I'm inside of my assets folder here, Models, Character PC. I'm going to keep going back to Models. You can see here's Armor, Yellow Hat. I'm just going to name this Yellow Hat. And I don't have any animations on this hat, but I do want to do Embed Media. Or actually, you know what? I don't want to do Embed, well, I want to use that same texture. So let's uncheck it and see what happens. I'm going to hit Export Selection, jump back into Unity here, and you'll notice now that I now have a yellow hat. And if I go to model, you can see there's my model. And then materials, what it has on it for material, let's drag it over really quickly, is that pop can texture that we created. So this is a nice way of creating a more of it'll help with render times in your engine. So it's more of a optimize is the word I was looking for game. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the yellow hat here, right? Because the actual pivot point, if I set this to 0, you'll notice it zeroed it out to the world actually. Where's my yellow hat? Let's delete this. Come on, yellow hat. Oh, I know what the problem is. Our yellow hat, we have to remember to always uncheck 1 centimeter to Unity. We want it to be the natural state coming out of Maya. So now when I drag it in, you can see it's where it's supposed to be. Now I want to make this, let's get our camera out of the way here a little bit, and our light, it's all sitting on top. I want to set this as a child, right, of this cano, so that anytime my can moves, my yellow hat moves. So I'm going to grab this and just drop it on top of there. And then I'm going to I'm going to activate that in code, okay? So actually I should rename, I don't know why my W didn't show up. I thought I got it. There we go. So I want to activate that through code. I also want to update my prefab. So I'm going to go override, apply all. Let's see, let's select this. Oh, the yellow hat. I guess it automatically updated it. Let's see. Where's our prefabs folder? Oh, you know what? My prefab never somehow got deleted. Original prefab, there we go, with the hat. Now if I uncheck this, it's in there. And the last thing I want to do, I know this video is getting a little bit longer, is again, apply all, right? Because I hid that can. I'm going to go back into, I'm going to make a new scene, file, new scene, save this. And I want to name this scene character customization. And we're going to put that in the scenes folder. So I'm going to hit save. And in this scene, I'm going to grab that yellow hat, or I'm sorry, my prefab, which is cano here. And again, my hat is underneath here, and I want that to be not active. And in the next video, what we'll do is looking at our first script, or creating the HUD where I can check on and off that to give my players the ability to add a hat.